how do you see the current Bitcoin cycle? Sorry, I was just curious because like yeah. So one is the Bitcoin kind of focus, which is so bullish,
The
and
other's
so
the
bonds
macro.
are like the total different opposite. Walk me through, how do you see the cycle? Obviously a lot of people talk about 2021 being the super hype year, and then 2022 being the minus 70% crash, and then a couple of my friends, and I include myself here, I believe that the first crash of Bitcoin in 2013 2014 was because of Mt. Gox, and 2017 was because ICOs just bubbled this entire thing up, and then it just had to come down. So my thesis is, if in 2021 we don't see this major hype driver, we're gonna see maybe minus 30, minus 35% setbacks, but not this minus 70, minus 80% setback. How do you see this? What's
Yeah,
your thoughts on this?
I've been thinking through the same thing. What's interesting is the seasonal cycle of Bitcoin is pretty clear. So it goes up early Jan, then corrects, then goes up in Feb, corrects in March, April. And we're kind of seeing that exactly play out now. And
Yeah,
then it explodes into June. I think it gets to 100,000. And then it corrects sideways. Sideways in Bitcoin terms is like down 35, down
yeah,
30%, but for an extended period of time until, let's say, September, October, maybe a little bit earlier, and then explodes into the end of the year. What's interesting is this cycle also looks pretty much like the 2013 cycle. It's pretty close. It's actually pretty close. It's diverging a bit from the 2017 cycle because it's actually ahead of it in terms of
yeah.
price movement. So that's how I see the rest of this year playing out. Next year, I'm kind of with you. I'm kind of thinking that we won't have a big collapse because of the new participants.
Mm-hmm.
So what happened last time around, it was all retail, and retail had made a lot of money. And so they wanted to convert back to fiat to buy things. And the more it went down, the more they thought, oh shit, I want to buy that car I was going to buy, and stuff like that. But with more institutional adoption, I think the volatility comes down over time. And maybe it just sideways corrects like gold did for the last few years, where it traded down 30%, but over 18 months. So it's just boring. And you bore people out of the trade, and some people accumulate over that period. I think that's probably the most likely. I think there's also a outside chance that, we all look at plan B stock to flow, and I use a number of different ways of getting a price projection. I use a regression analysis on the log chart. That gives me, for it to get to kind of one standard deviation overbought, it's about 400,000. But if it gets to two standard deviations, where it got to the last two times, it's 1 million. I think there is a risk that we all think, and I see Plan B asking this question a lot on Twitter, where do you think it tops out? Mm-hmm. The skew is to the low side. The skew is around the 150,000 to 200,000. Mm-hmm.
200,000, I agree, yeah. Mm-hmm.
288,000 number, people are really not sure on.
Yeah.
And anything higher, they're like, no chance, the lowest probability of all. And I'm like, I kind of like those odds. I kind of feel that we could have that shocking moment where a lot of people sell out at between 150 and 250 for these reasons. We've all got kind of seen that, and we all think that could be the case, and we could overshoot. We could see an elongated cycle for the reasons that you said, because the institutions continue. So I don't know. It's hard to play. I think I will probably take some off the table somewhere in that, and probably hold some. So something like that. It's difficult to know what to do. You can just hold it. It depends what age and what you want to do with the money. You either want to keep it in Bitcoin because you want to just participate in the next cycle, so you just think of it as just a savings vehicle, or you want to cash in for lifestyle chips and buy yourself a house or a car or do whatever you want to do, and you need to time that if you want to take some money off the table to use for other purposes.
What's your antithesis to Bitcoin at the moment? Like, why wouldn't it work out?
I think the antithesis that I've got that is not on people's radar screens is, I've discussed this a couple of times and a lot of people still don't understand it, is Bitcoin's real value proposition is this store of value with limited supply that's kind of understandable. So we've heard the BIS and the IMF talk about the need for digital currencies. They've also talked about a new Bretton Woods moment. And what they've been talking about with that is the ability basically